What's going on, Bengals fans? Stone Shields on hand for another edition of Bengals Breakdown. And coming up on today's show, it is my first 53-man roster projection for the Cincinnati Bengals after the 2025 NFL Draft. Obviously, you got 90-plus guys on the roster right now. That's got to get whittled down significantly over the course of the next few months. Got a long ways away before training camp and the preseason, obviously, but this is my first crack at putting together Cincinnati's first 53-man roster. Make sure you stay tuned throughout the entirety of today's show. Don't miss any Cincinnati Bengals news, rumors, all of it. We've got it covered here at the channel. That's youtube.com/BengalsTV. Our next goal here at the channel is 19,000 subscribers, and we are rapidly approaching that mark, and obviously 20K is just right around the corner from that. So some big things coming here at Bengals Breakdown. You don't want to miss any of our coverage, any of our content. Help us out. Help yourself out as well by hitting that sub button, youtube.com/BengalsTV. Start with the quarterback. This one's easy. Very easy, right? Joe Burrow, QB1, best quarterback in the National Football League. Book it. Jake Browning slides in at that backup spot. You might be thinking, well, UDFA, Peyton Thorne. No, all right, that's not happening. You're in a spot with, if you're going to challenge Jake Browning for that backup job, they would have allocated a draft pick to that position. They didn't do that. That would have been silly of them to do that. Logan Woodside and Peyton Thorne will compete for that, QB3 spot on the practice squad, and I fully anticipate Logan Woodside wins that battle. But quarterback room, very straightforward. Running back starts to get a little more interesting here for the Cincinnati Bengals. How many guys are you going to keep? Last year they kept 3 guys, right? And this year I've got Cincinnati keeping 4 guys. Chase Brown, he is your bona fide running back 1. Samje Perine, obviously you brought him in from Kansas City. He's going to be your third down back, right? I don't expect his role, by the way, to be as big as it was when he went on that Super Bowl run a couple of years ago, but he will have a role, make no mistake about it. Zack Moss, news coming in recently that he's going to be back with this football team. Team-friendly deal. Great that he's going to be back playing football at the professional level, and then you allocated a resource in Tahj Brooks in the 6th round. He absolutely is going to make the football team. When you're talking about guys on the outside looking in, you're talking about Gary Brightwell, right? Kendall Milton, who I really like out of Georgia, was a rookie this past year. Look for him to be a practice squad guy. And then Quayle Conley, you brought him in as a UDFA here in this 2025 class. Those guys on the outside looking in. Pin comment time here on today's show. How many running backs do you think Cincinnati will keep? All 4 guys that I listed, I'm pretty confident all 4 of those guys are going to make this football team. But again, they only took 3 last year, so there's some flexibility there in terms of what they do. Let me know. Get a number for me down in the comments. How many running backs will Cincinnati keep in 2025? All right, Cincinnati's going to keep 6 receivers. I thought about just kind of starting out here and going with 5. And then adding another position somewhere else. But I figured, try to make this as accurate as possible. Your 3 guys on the left here, there's obviously no controversy there. Chase, Higgins, and Yoshi all going to be back in 2025. And then you got Jermaine Burton. That is the real wild card. Look, most organizations would have cut him, would have moved on from him. Cincinnati did not do that. They did not draft another wide receiver, and they did not add a veteran free agent wide receiver as well. So that tells me they're giving him a second chance, despite the 2 evictions, despite the assault claims from people in the city of Cincinnati. All the turmoil that was around Jermaine Burton appears as though he's going to have an opportunity here throughout the offseason to play his way onto this football team. It's risky. But obviously, you allocated a 3rd-round pick to him a couple of years ago. I've got him making this football team. Charlie Jones, he's been hurt basically these 2 years that he's been here. Really love him as a punt returner. Haven't really seen him do much as a receiver. Then this is the wild card here. Isaiah Williams, he did a great job filling in for Charlie Jones at that punt return spot in 2024. Will he make this team? I don't know, because you have a solid UDFA class at that wide receiver position. I'm really high on Jordan Moore. The Bengals have shown Troy Walters at that wide receiver coach position has shown that he can develop these guys, and some of these UDFAs can really contribute to the active roster. And you also have Cole Burgess, a guy I'm really high on, who was a UDFA last year, and Kendrick Pryor obviously has been here for a few years as well. Wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys plays their way onto the roster and takes the last spot from Isaiah Williams. Tight end room, only going with 4 guys here. I am leaving a guy out. I'm sure it is very obvious for you to figure out who that is, but Gesicki, Sample, they're locked in. Gesicki's back. Awesome job by Cincinnati in free agency, making sure that he returns to this football team. Sample had the best year of his career in 2024. He's a real blocking tight end, right? Cam Grandy earned himself another contract. He really was tremendous in a limited role. And then I've got Tanner Hudson here as that tight end 4, with Cincinnati only keeping 4 tight ends here. Tanner McLaughlin, he was your 6th-round pick out of Arizona in 2024. I was super high on him when the Bengals drafted him. And, the personnel team decided that they were going to stick him around on the roster this past year. We never really saw him. We never called his name, right? So he's going to have an opportunity to take that 4th spot from Tanner Hudson, or maybe they take 5, not out of the realm of possibilities there whatsoever. But Eric All Jr. obviously is going to miss the entirety of the 2025 season. And then Cole Taylor, a guy that he brought in as a UDFA from West Virginia, is not going to find his way onto the roster. Offensive line here for the Cincinnati Bengals, I have them taking 9 offensive linemen here. Orlando Brown Jr., Dylan Fairchild, Ted Karras, Lucas Patrick, and Amarius Mims. That's my starting projection for what the offensive line looks like in week 1. And then I've got Cody Ford, Matt Lee. I've got Cordell Volson making the team. Obviously, he has a pretty high price number on his head, so Cincinnati would save a lot of money if they were to cut him and bring him back at a lower rate. But I'm banking on Scott Peters getting the most out of Cordell Volson, and I think he makes this team despite being owed over $3 million. And then Jalen Rivers, your 5th-round pick out of Miami, he's going to make the team as well. I've got Cincinnati only taking 9 offensive linemen in this first roster projection. Again, we are approaching 19,000 subscribers, less than 400 away from making that happen. We will be here throughout the entirety of the offseason. Still have plenty of stuff to talk about and plenty of things to cover. Don't miss out on any of our coverage. Help us out. Hit that sub button right now. Let's transition to the defensive side of the football here, and we'll start with that linebacker position. Logan Wilson is going to be really spearheading that group for the Cincinnati Bengals, and I'm really looking forward to watching him play and lead this football team in 2025. Obviously, Jermaine Pratt is not on this list. He's going to be released in a matter of days. Shoot, by the time this video is out, maybe he will have been released by then. But then you got your 2 draft picks, Demetrius Knight Jr. and Barrett Carter. Demetrius Knight Jr. has to be a hit. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Him and Shamar Stewart, we'll get to him later. Demetrius Knight has to be a hit. Older guy, played a lot of college football, spent his last year at South Carolina. Al Golden's got to get him ready to go. Barrett Carter, your 4th-round pick out of Clemson a couple of rounds later. Oren Burks, kind of a wild card in this room, who you brought in from Philadelphia. He was tremendous for the Eagles in their Super Bowl run this past year. And then Muma Jong-Meda, who played his way onto the roster last year as a UDFA. He's going to be back with this Cincinnati Bengals football team. I absolutely love him and his versatility, what he can do on special teams as well. Muma Jong-Meda, don't be surprised if some things don't go, particularly well for those 2 rookies, and Jong-Meda ends up getting a little bit more playing time than maybe you expected. What's your confidence level in the Bengals linebacker room? Let me know in the comments of today's show. Scale it for me. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. Let's get to that cornerback spot here. Cincinnati typically takes 6 guys in that room, and really no surprises here across the board for the Cincinnati Bengals. Cam Taylor-Britt, he's going to be back. Really struggled this past year for the Cincinnati Bengals in coverage. Made a lot of mental mistakes. Hopefully Al Golden and company can get that cleaned up, because really Cincinnati looks at him as kind of, the CB1. We'll see how Dax Hill looks when he comes back, but Bengals really don't have a clear-cut cornerback 1 here. DJ Turner was coming along before he fractured his clavicle on Sunday Night Football against the Chargers. Josh Newton, rookie last year, he kind of got picked on a little bit, but I do feel pretty good about him moving inside of that nickel spot, taking over for Mike Hilton. DJ Ivey, really love him. 7th-round pick a couple of years ago out of Miami, and really like him in his game, and really I thought he did some good stuff for the Bengals, particularly on 3rd down. Same with Marco Wilson as well. The Bengals bringing him back in free agency. I don't view any of the guys that aren't on this board really as candidates to challenge any of these guys for a spot on the roster. Obviously, you got Micah Abraham. He's been around for a couple of years. Nate Brooks, who I'm really high on, he had some stints in the XFL before landing with Cincinnati this past year. He's a good football player, but don't think he's going to challenge any of these 6 guys. Jalen Davis, who's made your team in the past at that nickel spot. Perhaps maybe he works his way onto the roster if Josh Newton does not develop how the coaches are hoping. Lance Robinson, and, of course, a UDFA, the only corner UDFA you brought in, Braylon Lux out of Texas Tech. Let's talk safety here on today's show. Really, at this point, after free agency and the draft, I view this to be the weakest part of your football team. This area really caused you a lot of concerns last year, and you didn't address it whatsoever. Literally did nothing to address it. Geno Stone, the Bengals are kind of banking on the rebirth of Geno Stone. You saw him play well down the stretch last year, but you were playing below-average quarterbacks and below-average football teams for the most part, apart from the Denver Broncos. Hopefully, Geno Stone can get back to that form that we saw when he was in Baltimore a couple of years ago, picking on the Bengals. Ironically, Jordan Battle started out a little shaky. He transitioned into playing some good football as well. I still have a lot of hope for Jordan Battle to be a solid football player. Tycen Anderson, one of my favorite guys on the team. He's your special teams ace, right? And we kind of talk about, that you had so much struggle at safety last year, and you never really saw Tycen Anderson inserted into that defensive lineup. Maybe that changes this year if things don't go well for Stone/Battle. Dejon Anthony, your 7th-round pick last year out of Ole Miss, also projected to make this room. Other guys that aren't, P.J. Jules, right? He was a UDFA last year. He's probably going to be a practice squad guy again. And Jalen Key as well. Spent some time playing at Alabama. You have him now. Maybe he makes the team over a Dejon Anthony, but probably not, considering Anthony made the team last year. Defensive line here. I got Cincinnati taking 10 of these guys, and then we'll get to some specialists here on today's show. I got Henderson in there. Obviously, there's uncertainty. Is he going to show up? What's going to happen with him? At this point, as we sit here on the last, filming this on the last day of April, put him in that defensive line room. TJ Slaton, probably my favorite free agent acquisition for the Cincinnati Bengals. Most recently played with Green Bay. He is going to be a significant upgrade from Sheldon Rankins at that nose tackle spot. BJ Hill's back. Kind of surprising that Cincinnati opted to re-sign him, but good for him. Good to have BJ back on the football team. Hopefully he can improve and bounce back a little bit. Myles Murphy, former first-round pick. It's now or never for Myles Murphy. We'll see if he can show up and show out in 2025. Osai is back on a 1-year prove-it deal for Cincinnati. That also, to me, was a bit of a surprise. And you got Shamar Stewart, who Cincinnati obviously needs to make a significant impact right away. Cam Sample coming back after that serious injury. I believe it was an Achilles. He popped. Cam Sample's another one of those guys that I say, shoot, if the Bengals had Cam Sample on defense last year, maybe things aren't so bad on that side of the football. McKinley Jackson will enter year 2. Really excited kind of for that rotation between him and TJ Slaton at that nose tackle spot. Chris Jenkins Jr. certainly showed some flashes out of Michigan this past year. Cedric Johnson, 6th-round pick out of Ole Miss in 2024. I really like Cedric Johnson, and in limited playing time last year, he played really, really well. There's some people that believe that a guy like Howard Cross Jr., who is a UDFA, could perhaps play his way onto this roster. I don't know exactly who he would take a spot from. You also have Eric Gregory, another UDFA out of Arkansas that could potentially challenge one of these guys for a spot as well. 3 specialists to round out today's show. Evan McPherson is going to be back. Obviously missed the last chunk of the season with that hamstring injury. He's going to be back. He's going to be the kicker. Hopefully he can get back to where he was in 2021 when Cincinnati went on that Super Bowl run, and he really, that year, was the best kicker in the National Football League. Has been far from it the past 2 seasons. Ryan Rico had an impressive rookie campaign from a punting perspective. Hopefully from a holding perspective, things get a little cleaner. Cal Adamitis is still my projection at that long snapper spot, but kind of a position. I get it's long snapper. Nobody really cares. But William Wagner, UDFA out of Michigan. A lot of people think that he was one of the best long snappers in college football last year. The Bengals are bringing him in, and I do think it will be an open competition between Wagner and Adamitis. If you made it to the end of today's show, you are a real one, and we appreciate you. Show your love for us by hitting that thumbs up icon right now.